Burnout to All Out fam, I am so excited for you all to get a chance to hear from the cream of the crop. These are our Burnout to All Out Elevate 360 mastermind clients who've been in my mastermind, high-level mastermind, all year this year. And we do a summit once a year with our mastermind clients to debut their zone of genius. What is incredible is that these clients all embody a 360 degree approach to business. They all contribute in one way, shape, or fashion as subject matter experts that contribute to the pillars of Elevate 360, which is truly that we believe that bodies build businesses and that we have to have business strategy and legacy strategy as well. And so what is really cool about these clients is that through a series of a couple of days of a summit, they were able to highlight and bring value and educate in their fields, whether it was around self-leadership, leadership in business, business strategies, energetics and mindset, and or legacy, and how we take what we're doing and make our money work harder than we did for it to create impact and legacy over time. And so they really embody all that represents the 360 degree approach to business and the Burnout to All Out through line of our mastermind. So over the next couple of episodes, you are going to hear from all of these experts. You're going to get the details to their work in the notes section. And hopefully you're inspired as well as to what is possible for you as an entrepreneur in scaling your businesses the way these incredible human beings have. So hope you enjoy this series.
I want to just start with a formal, introduction for Renee, our next member of Elevate 360 Mastermind. Renee is a strategic consultant. She's a fixer. She's a corporate dropout. So like sister from another mother over there, who has supported multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions. Today, she helps high-performing women CEOs regain control of their growing business when systems fail, teams stall, or major pivots are required. She's known as the chaos whisperer from her calm, direct approach. Renee brings structure, speed, and confidence to leaders navigating growth, crisis, and operational transitions, which all happen at some point in season in business, right? And so with that, Renee, so excited to have you here today, really speaking to the art of the pivot, embracing clarity, confidence, and transformation. So welcome to the room, my friend.
Thank you so much, Melissa. This has been a fantastic journey with you being in E360. And I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, absolutely. So what I thought we could do is, I'm thinking through kind of like crisis and growth are like two different kind of categories that I'd love for us to kind of talk through. I think in seasons of business, we experience both. I've been in seasons of business in hyper growth, which is a whole different ball game of capacity to hold, right? And I've been in seasons of massive pivot that could be deemed crisis worthy, right? So let's start with crisis. Let's start with crisis and problem solving. And actually, I want to get ahead of crisis and problem solving. We'll get into the weeds of crisis in a minute, but let's actually, with your experience and working with CEOs and managing crisis with these multi-billion-dollar mergers and experience you've had, how do I articulate this? Are there ways that one can anticipate and foresee before the crisis happens, right? So where I'm going is like crisis mitigation. We'll get into the throes of crisis in a second, but I also think that there's probably some skills or some wherewithal to anticipate before the crisis hits. What would you say are some of the common behaviors or avoidable actions or lack thereof from CEOs that lead a company into crisis because they didn't see or act accordingly before the crisis hit. Is that making sense? Is there
It totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I think what's beneficial to understand is that typically when CEOs hit a certain season in their business, like let's say they're already established, they've gotten over the first hump. Maybe they've made their first million, first 2 million, like they've got some things established that they understand about themselves, their business, and what they're trying to build. What happens is you start to have breakdowns in some specific areas. So that's either going to be people, systems, processes, in your money, your profits, your strategic planning or lack thereof, or your customer service and like your public perception. Mm-hmm. So in those 5 areas is typically where you're already having some friction. Mm-hmm. And what tends to happen is that what I notice about wonderful CEOs is that they are really good at what they're really good at. Mm-hmm. So they put their head down, they focus on that. Mm-hmm. And then the other things may either get pushed aside or ignored, or it's important, but it's not urgent. Mm-hmm. So we're not working on those particular issues. And then we allow over time for those things to boil up to become a problem in one of those 5 areas until we just can't ignore it anymore. And so then that CEO has to then take their attention off of what they're great at and then actually work on, whatever that problem is. But it could have been anticipated or even mitigated had we have put something in place to deal with that earlier or upfront. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of a come to Jesus moment or a moment of honesty that says, hey, did I kick the can down the road? I kind of saw that coming, but I ignored it. And that's when we get the pebble. When you get the pebble or the grain of sand, you should address it when it's a whisper, because once it becomes a boulder, like it's really big and you have to deal with it. Okay, now we have a problem. Mm-hmm. But you were getting pebbles all along, sis. You just kind of ignored those. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, so there's definitely some things that we can do to mitigate the problems that are coming. Does that answer the question?
It does. And I would love, maybe could we double click down into these 5 areas, right? Because we have a lot of CEOs on the line. We have a lot of founders on the line. Mm-hmm. Many, are in their first season of scaling their first million, right? Mm-hmm. And what I have found personally is with the clients I work with, a lot of them haven't necessarily come from a corporate world. I work with a lot of folks who are what I mean is or even just have a zone of genius, like our healthcare providers, right? We'll be hearing a lot from them tomorrow. Yeah. And they have this zone of genius and then they become a CEO, but they don't have the business background, right? I guess is where I'm going.
Yes.
And their business is taken off, right? Mm-hmm. And how can you, to that avatar, right? To the ideal client of mine who, is in their zone of genius. They've launched a business as an expert in the digital realm, but they don't necessarily have the organizational structure as a leader in corporate or small business before. Can you break down maybe these 5 areas that they need to keep front and center as they're scaling that you were just talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. The first one is people. Mm-hmm. So people, you have to examine who's on your team. If you've built a team, do you have the right people in the right seat on the bus? That's the question. So let's say you have someone who has a great skill set for organization, but you have them working in tech, not as an admin. So you have to make sure that when you have people on your team, that they are functioning in the gift that they have that fits best within your organization. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's hard to do that because you may hire somebody to do one thing, but as your business grows, it evolves, it changes. Mm-hmm. You still got that person functioning in the same role that they had when the company started or when the business started, but now you've elevated, like you've grown. Mm-hmm. And so that person may no longer be the right fit for that role. So that's one thing to consider when it comes to people. The next thing is working through processes. Do you have the right processes and systems in place so that things happen as automated as possible? We're human. You can't automate everything, but the flow should be pretty much the same so that if someone is out on maternity leave, someone hits the lotto and moves to Barbados, somebody quits and takes all the information with them, Do you have the ability to continue to function? Are the systems in place to run your business without so-and-so? So that's the next thing to consider. After that, you're going to move on to profit. And the profit portion of your business, how are we managing our finances? Are we paying ourselves? Sometimes as CEOs, like, we're not getting paid. The business is running. Are we doing things properly with taxes? Have we set aside a rainy day fund? If we have to lay people off or let people go, do we have a savings with a cushion for 30 days? So where profit and revenue are concerned, there are some specific things that you want to build around that so that you have it in place. The next thing, number 4, is going to be planning. So in planning, are you strategic, or are you just running on, we just finished a launch, we just did the last thing, oh, I have an idea, let's do this next? Or do we have a strategic plan? Like Melissa, you said for 2026, you already sat down and like wrote out like what your plan is for next year. Like you have a business plan and you're going to meticulously work through that plan as you go. So you have to be strategic about your business so that it's just not happening to you. Number 5 is public perception. That really speaks to customer service. Does every person have the same experience as they go? So from top of funnel to their post-experience survey that you send them after they meet with you or your team, what is the experience, and is it the same for everybody? Or do you know that there are so many hiccups and glitches in the process that some people get a great experience and other people kind of get misses? And so then your Google reviews are like 5s and 1s. It's like, weird. So you have to examine the process that people are working through. So those are the 5. So it's people, it's processes, it's profits, planning, and then public perception.
So it's P's. It's all P's.
Yes.
So I love this so much. I took some notes while you were talking. So I want to let's go deep again. So let's talk about people, right? Because I think this is really relevant. Actually, we talked about this at our mastermind event in Miraval with like growth and people and how as companies grow, and this is something Kelly Roche, my mentor, taught me, and I've really abided by it, is that especially in entrepreneurship, especially in small business and how quickly we grow, there are people who are going to be on your team who are going to be able to grow with you. And there's going to be people you outgrow. The company they can't keep up with the pace of the company, right? The company, companies can grow fast. I mean, I know I went from like 0 to almost 4 million in a matter of 2 years, right? So what that company looked like with 1 to 2 people helping me to where we were 3 years later was vastly different. Even when we look at the tech stack, we look at the operations of the company, the deliverability, and it's like some folks you're going to outgrow and some folks are going to grow with you, right? And I know I saw Shelly just put that in the chat as well, as like there's new challenges and new growth and reevaluating kind of where people are and if it makes the most sense for them to still be there based on the growth of the company. And I think this is really, really relevant because, again, I just want to double down and say that there are certain key talent, and I would love for you to speak to this. It's like there's certain key talent that has a growth mindset and is there to grow with you. But there's also people that will stagnate the shit out of your company because they're stubborn and they don't want to do things differently. And you don't realize as the business owner, they're creating a massive bottleneck in your entire company because they're not willing to grow with you, right? And I know I experienced that. And it was a really hard reality because they were like family to me. And it's really hard to offboard them when you first get started and it's like family and then you take off and it's like, well, they're family, but it's like, but they're not willing to grow with us. Right. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. And it's strange that you mentioned the word bottleneck because I'm saying it early, but that's my freebie. So it's freebie.reneewilliams.com. And it's actually the CEO bottleneck checklist. And that is on the list where we talk about, do you have people who are on the team who either should be moved off the team permanently or should be in a different role? Because as you grow and you elevate, you can't take everybody with you as much as you want to, as much as they are wonderful people. That doesn't mean that they're the right person for the job. And sometimes you're keeping people on your team who would be better suited someplace else. but you're holding them fast to a position because you're uncomfortable with having the conversation.
Yes.
And so you've got to get to what you need to do mentally to make the decision to move that person out. Yep. So there are a couple of things to look at when you have people actually with any of these problems. So you got to get clarity on exactly what is the problem that I'm having with the person, like specifically what's happening. Have we elevated so much that this person is no longer a good fit for the team? Then the next thing is like asking yourself why. Why are they no longer a good fit? Why is this a problem? What effect is it having on the business? What are the consequences in energy, in culture, in morale, and what's happening within the team with this person in this role? The next thing is do you have the confidence to make the decision, Melissa? It's a hard conversation when you're trying to tell someone who's been working for you or with you, let's say from the beginning, and now your business has grown and they're no longer a good fit. It takes a lot of confidence to have that conversation. And you're almost like, man, I wish I could ask somebody else to tell them. But you as a leader, you are running the ship and you have to have the confidence. That's a muscle you have to build to be able to have those crucial conversations, to talk to that person and let them know. Once you have had the conversation and either demoted, moved, lateral move or completely move them off the team, then the next thing is, what is your plan next? Like, how are you going to figure out next steps? Because that person may leave a gap or a hole in the business. That might be another reason why people are hesitant about moving somebody off the team, because maybe they don't have the systems in place. Like they never established things while that person was there. So they're hesitant about moving them. So there are a few things that you can do on this particular subject. Like where I started is figure out why it's a problem. Number 2, have the confidence to have the conversation. Number 3, before you have the conversation, figure out how you're going to fill the hole or the gap. What backup do you need to put in place for once that person is moved out? And then the next thing is you have to actually have the crucial conversation with them. And I always suggest the sandwich. I'm sure most leaders are familiar. You tell them great things about what they're doing fantastic, how they're a wonderful person, all of the things that they've brought to the organization. In the middle, you're going to put the reasons why it's no longer a good fit and why it's just time for us to do something different at this time. We've decided to go in another direction, and perhaps here's why. And then on the bottom, you're going to put the other side of that sandwich where you tell them what a wonderful future they have, how you anticipate that things are going to be absolutely fantastic for them, and that you look forward to seeing how great they are going to do in the future with other opportunities.
I love this so much. Yes, Shelly's calling it the shit sandwich. I love it. It's so true, right?
Go, Shelly.
It really is. And I'm calling forward all the CEOs here watching and listening to the replay. I think one of the most difficult things for most founders and CEOs is the people piece when it comes to offboarding or having those difficult conversations. But the faster you can have them, the larger positive impact and ripple effect it's going to make in your company, And
Can I say something on that, Melissa, before you ask the next question, because you just piqued something for me. If you hire slow and fire fast, that is the best way to go. Yes. Gino Wickman has a book called Traction where he talks about this. Mm-hmm. Hiring slow means you have an extensive interview process where they meet with multiple people on the team. You give them a project to do that's very similar to the work that they're going to be doing in your organization. That hiring process should not be like, I met them once, it was a Zoom interview, they're hired. Right. If you're desperate to hire somebody, then go to Fiverr or Upwork or somewhere where you can just plug in somebody until you have time to do a full interview process with a project. Yes. For the person that you're hiring permanently for that role. Mm-hmm. And so that way it's a slow hiring process, but you've kind of filled in the gap.
Yeah.
And then fire fast. When you see that you have an issue with the person, let's have a conversation right away. Then second conversation is, we already talked about this before. Third conversation, it's time for us to do something different. But those conversations should happen pretty succinctly, pretty quickly.
Yeah, I love this. So a couple of things I wanted to hit on here. And I love that you talked about traction, right? Because What I have found is by having core values with my company, it holds everyone accountable. And if there's a team member who's not in alignment with those core values, it makes the conversation a whole lot easier, right? So for instance, and I've been working with Traction for years, but I rewrote my core values after this past year because there's one person that is no longer with the organization that last year was very much like, I'll use the word stubborn, just refused to adopt any new technology or anything that we wanted to move forward with, including AI, right? For a year and a half, I was like trying to get this person to move forward with AI. And it was just like, it's not my scope of role. I'm not going to do it. Like, this is right. And now in my core values, and this is really good advice for all entrepreneurs, we're in a fast-paced industry where like shit changes every day. And it's really important. I believe, this is my personal biased opinion, you should be hiring people who have a growth mentality and a figure it out mentality in the online space, and not a fixed mindset of like, this is my individual job, this is my individual box, and if it doesn't fit in this box, I'm not going to do it. Like, that is not a great characteristic for support in the digital world where things are going 90 miles an hour, right? And so one of my core values now is everything is figure outable. That is a core value. And underneath it, it's not possible are not words that are allowed in my company, right? So my team and I included, when we're up against a hurdle, we're not allowed to say it's not possible. We can't do that. Right? Because that's what stagnates and slows companies down, right? What grows companies is thinking around and through and how we get there, right? So I love what you said about the interview process. I think Charlotte is a really great example. My executive assistant, Charlotte, you may agree, we had a really thorough hiring process with her, and she had to actually do a project. And knowing the pace at which our company runs and knowing the skill sets that our team really needs, I really look at hiring for the bigger role, hiring for broader capacity and ability to demonstrate more than just the individual scope of role, because we do run lean, right? Like within the company. So I love all of that you put forward. One last thing I wanted to say on this, Renee, because I love this, but this is a really good example of offboarding someone and it being actually a beautiful thing, right? And I had to offboard my ads manager last year, and she was one of my closest friends. She'd become one of my closest friends. And to your point, Renee, I used the shit sandwich, right? And talked about the things that they had done beautifully, but why it wasn't working out. And the beauty in all of this as an entrepreneur who works from home is that my 6-year-old at the time heard the whole conversation. And afterwards he said, "Did you just fire her?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, and he was like, "Well, isn't she it sounded like you guys are still friends." And I was like, "We are." And it's funny because now we're back doing business again together, which is a good reason to leave on good note, right? But it's like, you can have a sole contract with someone on your team that serves you for each of you for a season, and it be okay that for another season you're not together. And then a season you come back or not, right? It doesn't have to be this drama, right? Would you agree?
Absolutely, for sure. So the idea is that if you are a good leader, and most of us we try to be good leaders and be good people. If you've been a good leader and you've been speaking to the person ongoing about the challenges that you're seeing, or maybe that this isn't a good fit for them, and you're doing it in a way that's very diplomatic, that's not emotional. There are some things that you can do to learn how to have crucial conversations with people, books that you can read on that. But as you're learning how to become a good leader, you're encouraging people who are on your team to be the best, to do the best. And sometimes that's not with you. And so then when it's time to have the conversation, it's not as awkward. It's not as hard because you've already developed or established who you are as a leader, and they welcome the information. They welcome the conversation because they know it's coming from a good place. Yes. And so that I've seen bad leaders just working in corporate. I'm sure anybody that's worked in large organizations has seen people who are not good leaders. And I think one of the markers of a person who's not a good leader is that they're very emotional and they speak from their emotion. If they're upset or angry about something, then that comes across in the conversation that you're having with the person. But if you find that you're able to become a leader who lifts up people, who is uplifting, who is inspirational to your team, if they are willing to listen to your advice and hear from you, then they're just like Melissa's saying, there could be an opportunity to work together in the future, because they're not a bad person. It's just not a good fit for that role that you have them in right now. Right. But there could be an opportunity in the future, but we have to be leaders who are willing to manage people that way.
Yes. Yeah. So we're calling you all forward, good leaders.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is all really good. One more thing I want to hit on, and then let's get into, we've got a couple minutes. I want to talk about growth, but we talk about planning, right? Yes. I'm already in the throes of my business plan for next year. And this is what I want us to talk about is we can have the best laid plans, and there can be curveballs thrown at you as a business owner, right? And my question for you, for advice to CEOs, is when is it time to check your ego at the door with the plan and pivot, right? So it's like, this was my written plan for the year. And I'm going to talk a lot about this at our live event, right? Because we've made a huge pivot this year. And it's like, when do you have, what is your advice to the CEO to truly have the wherewithal to get just enough data to know that you need to move, but you don't have all the information yet? But to your point, we can't not move when there can be a crisis in front of us because we're ignoring the problem, right? So I guess my question to you is, for the CEO who's put together the perfect business plan for the year and a lot of ego attached to it, where and when and what kind of advice do you give to the founder and CEO when their best laid plan is beginning to unravel, that it's not getting the results that they thought? How long do they stick with that plan versus when do they take action and pivot?
Yeah. So for that, the thing that came to mind, like when you were saying it, was like the phrase, like life is lifing, because life is going to life, like things are going to happen. Business is going to have peaks and valleys. National administrations will change. Stock markets will, ebb and flow. So things are going to change in your business. Sometimes customer sentiment moves in a different direction away from, whatever the product is that you're selling or the offer that you have at the time. So I would say for that, it is important that you have confidence in the plans that you are making. Always be willing to have a contingency. Leaders lead by understanding that I'm going to take the information that I have right now, and I'm going to make the best decision based on the information as it stands today.
Yes.
So if I'm making that decision right now with the understanding that whatever happens in my business, in life, in the markets, I may have to shift. And if a shift is at hand, then let's get some clarity around where we need to shift to. What are the trends? What might be happening outside of our business, or what's causing some of the tension or things that are happening? One, is it internal? Is it something that's happening within my business that's causing it to crumble, something that I've ignored? Or is it external? Is it an external force that's pushing itself in on my business? And how can I manage based on where we are right now? So let's talk about the sunk cost fallacy. What that means is that you've been pouring money, energy, time, effort, everything in your business into a specific plan. But just because you've gotten to a certain point and you're reading the writing on the wall, you see that things are shifting. Just because you've sunk all of those assets and that into what you're doing now, that doesn't mean that you can't pivot.
Yes.
Let's cut our losses where we are and turn into a way, one, that's going to get us stable. Let's stabilize first. We don't have to go, into growth, but let's just cut where we are. Let's just get stable right here. And once we're stable where we are, we get our legs under us, we read what's happening, and then we can figure out exactly where to pivot and where to move from there. But what the sunk cost fallacy says is just because you've been putting energy, effort, time, money into one thing, that doesn't mean you have to continue with that thought or that plan just because that's what you thought you were going to do. Don't be afraid to pivot.
Yes,
know how to
that
pivot.
is exactly what I wanted to hear you say. Is it's like you have to. What's that country song? You have to know when to hold them and when to fold
Yeah,
them.
Kenny Rogers. Know when to walk away, know when to run. You better count your money while you're sitting at the table. Okay, all right, I'm sorry.
Yes, and I've been through multiple iterations of this, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, right? And I think it is a skill set as a CEO to the quicker you can accept and pivot and come up with a plan and commit and lead, like the quicker you're going to move, right? So I love that. I know we've just got a couple minutes left, but let's talk about growth, right? What are some of the common maybe some common challenges of growth that CEOs and some of our newer founders have maybe not even run into yet or are currently experiencing and don't even know it? What are you seeing out there in the marketplace?
I would say mindset. So I work with a lot of women CEOs who are established and they're really good at what they're good at. But then when it's time to grow, that means they have to do something that's new or different. And so they get stuck in the mindset, like this is the way that we've always done it, or this is the system or process that got us here. And then they're not really understanding, like, why are we stalled, or why is the next thing not happening? Or why does it feel so hard? Like I feel like I'm running in mud, like I'm just not able to grow. And so typically what happens is that the mindset has to shift. That is where fantastic coaching like E360 or another type of program like that comes in, because for most of us, we can get ourselves to our skill, talent, good looks, whatever you want to call it, can get you to a certain point.
Yes.
Beyond that, you have to have an outside force, outside knowledge, some receipts, some demonstrated expertise to help you get to the next level. And I don't know a CEO who's successful who's never had coaching of some sort.
Yes.
And so that's just a requirement, Melissa.
I love this so much. You've probably heard me talk about it, but I call it the law of the lid, right? It's one of the 21 laws of John Maxwell. Like innate talent will take all of us to a certain level. And then it's a matter of seeking mentorship to get you to the next level. And I am here to attest that the further you climb, the harder it is to find the next level mentor that is also embodying the lifestyle and not just the business, right? That you want to run or lead. So I couldn't agree with that more, right? Like I actually have mentors in spirituality and energy and also in business constantly, right? Yeah. So I love this full conversation. Now, before we get into like my E360 question for you, how can folks connect with you? A lot of people are resonating with what you have to say. I know we have a lot of female founders in our community and in my following. So how can folks connect with you, Renee, and learn more about your genius and mentorship? Speaking of mentorship.
Absolutely. So I do have a freebie, and we were talking about that a little bit earlier. It's just the CEO bottleneck checklist that you can do. It's freebie, FREEBIE.ReneeWilliams.com. I hang out on LinkedIn. So if you go to ReneeWilliams.com, it actually takes you to my LinkedIn page. I figured that was the easiest way to get you there. But ReneeWilliams.com will get you there. And that's the best way to connect with me. I would love to have conversations. I'm a problem solver at heart, Melissa. I think when we were in our one-on-one, I kind of discussed this with you. But my gift, like my God-given gift, is solving problems. I can see chaos, and for whatever reason, it's almost like puzzle pieces. I'm a hand talker, sorry. I see the pieces moving into place, like the clarity just comes for me. And I know sometimes when you're the CEO of a business, you are knee deep in everyday operations, dealing with the moment to moment issues. It's hard to stand outside of that and see what the real problem is. And so that is just a gift that I have. And I would love to connect with any CEOs that are on the call today.
Oh, love it so much. So Renee, as it pertains to a 360 approach to business, being an Elevate 360, how have you embodied personally the 360 approach in life and business?
Yeah, I know you know this, but everybody on the call may not know this. So I was having a life crisis back in February when we were heading to the retreat. And so that retreat was at Miraval in Austin. I packed up everything that I had, put most of my things in storage, the rest of it in my car. I went to Miraval and I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to stay in Austin. I'm just staying. It was beautiful. It was picturesque. The topography is gorgeous. And so I just decided, you know what, I'm going to stay here and get some clarity about who I am. And when I tell you, Melissa, the growth was exponential. Everything from modern entrepreneur, the mindset, the work that we did with Sam, the work we did with Preston, those things all stayed with me and helped me to clarify exactly what I'm doing. The reason why I named my topic about pivoting is because I came into E360 thinking I was going to do something completely different before that life situation happened in February. Since then, I've gone through a couple of different iterations to land where I am now, which is exactly where I'm supposed to be. But that clarity came through the time that I spent learning from you and this program about how to sit, how to be still, how to breathe, how to hear myself, how to get clarity. And from that, I understood who I am in this season and what I'm supposed to be doing and how I'm supposed to help my clients. So it's just been the most spectacular experience I've ever had in business.
So powerful. George is clapping for you.
I see. Thank you, George.
The power in the stillness, right? You and I could riff off on that for an hour. There's super power in that. Well, more about that tomorrow when we get into the inner work as an entrepreneur. Well, Renee, thank you so much. Everyone's loving your perspective, especially getting into the nitty-gritty of new business owners. So definitely for our listeners, go connect with Renee, go find her on Instagram. Instagram. You can find her on Instagram probably too, but go find her on LinkedIn. But
I hope you found this episode as inspirational and kick-ass as I enjoyed interviewing with it. If you love this and you resonated with it, please reach out to the speakers. Their information is in the notes. Feel free to reach out to us. And as always, if you're curious about mentorship and support and business coaching under the Burnout to All Out umbrella, go to burnouttoallout.co and check out what we have going on in the business mentorship world today, including business coaching and retreats that are live and experiential and take a 360-degree approach to business. We can't wait to see you on the other side, wherever we collide.